Well, good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 301 of the Prancing Pony Podcast, where, well, my co-host wonders if there is anyone in this route with authority to treat with us.
Not thou, at least. Folks, pull up a bench in the common room and join us. I'm Matt, the Nerd of the Rings, and I'm here with the man of the West, who needs more than a piece of elvish glass, Alan Sisto.
I'm so glad you enunciated glass. That could have been very embarrassing. I am a herald and an ambassador, sir, and I may not be assailed. Folks, join us as the Mouth of Sauron opens and steadfastly refuses to shut. In the last of our 2 episodes on the Black Gate opens, the 10th and final chapter of Book 5 of The Return of the King, and the last episode of Season 7 of the Prancing Pony Podcast.
That's wild that it's the end of the season already. Oh my gosh.
Hard to believe.
Now, folks, some of you are hearing this podcast for the very first time, and to you, we bid a warm welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, we are reading, talking, speculating, and often joking our way through Middle-earth a few pages at a time.
That's right. We take a deep dive into the lore. We explore how the story came to be. We talk about our favorite themes and a whole lot more.
But in a lighthearted and fun way, like friends chatting at the pub. And we're glad you've joined us.
I'm sure you'll be glad you joined as well. Now, tonight's episode will be long enough without the usual intro segment, but I do want to talk about a few things regarding the last year or so of the PPP and my plans for the show going forward. So this is sort of a state of the podcast intro segment, if you will. Now, this episode airs on July 30th. It's nearly a year to the day from the phone call when my good friend, your good friend too, Shawn Marchese, the Lord of the Mark here at the PPP, told me that he was going to have to step down from his position as full-time co-host. Looking back on it, I feel like I managed to convey a sense of steady calm and, hey, this is going to be okay at the time. But the truth is, it was kind of like a duck on a lake, right? It was all smooth and chill above the surface, kind of pretty, and just crazy, insane paddling where you couldn't see it. It was panic time, I have to tell you. The process of finding co-hosts was just out of this world. But I have to say, it worked because of the community. You know, and Matt, you know this because you've been a part of this community as well. Not just, our own individual communities, the Nerd of the Rings fandom or the PPP fandom, and not even just the larger Tolkien community, but the community of content creators, the people who do this all the time, and the passion that they have for the people that listen to and watch these things. And that's absolutely what saved my backside for this whole season was that community. And I'm so grateful to you and obviously to everybody else who was able to come in and be a part of the Prancing Pony Podcast this year. The team obviously stepped up huge. Jordan had to edit new voices every few weeks. That could not have been easy. Megan had to come up with all new graphics, including chapter graphics that have just been off the charts cool. Phil had to revamp the website. Katie kept our Discord community running smooth as silk, and she organized that moot that we had back in October when everybody was still, fresh off of Shawn's departure from the show. Casey, of course, has continued to help me on social media, giving the show the exposure that it needs. And Becca's continued to do a fantastic job fielding questions for the bag and keeping that all organized. It's just been amazing to see how the people that work for the show have stepped up, the people who listen to the show have stepped up, and the community of Tolkien content creators has stepped up as well. Every single host offered a unique perspective and helped me get more from the text. And that I could spend some time on, and I will later because, Matt, I think we have a question in the bag tonight on that.
Oh, great.
So, we'll definitely get a chance to talk about the co-hosts. But I do want to talk a little bit about the plans for going forward. Those of you who listen to the show for a while know that we're going to be approaching a hiatus. We usually do a break during summer. Gives me a chance to sort of look ahead and plan the next season. It gives me a chance to sort of tweak some things to improve the show, always making steps to make it better. It's very hard to make those improvements mid-season because of the bandwidth issues that we've got, just trying to keep the show going. But that 6 weeks is usually very important for me to go ahead and find those things to do even better. So that's what we're going to do this year. Usual hiatus. We return around Hobbit Day, and I'm hoping to do a live recorded episode from Oxamoot with Shawn and maybe with some of the other folks who have been hosts this season, like you, because you're going to be there.
Yeah.
Maybe Marcel, maybe Sarah. I mean, there's going to be a bunch of people who have been with me this season who are going to be there, and I'm looking forward to that.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah. The hosting situation is still up in the air. I know that people really want to know what I'm doing and what the plan is for next season. Everybody has different opinions. Everybody has maybe different people that they like. Everybody has, oh, I really like the rotating thing and whatever. Now, I have to say, I actually did really enjoy the rotational deal. This was a lot of fun, getting unique perspectives from everybody. But doing a show like that has a very unique set of challenges because I'm having to write for 9 different co-hosts during the season, work with 9 different, very different schedules and time zones around the world, different levels of equipment, which makes Jordan's job a lot harder for some folks. And then, of course, there's the fact that we all had really good chemistry right out of the gate. But for those who've listened to season 1, they know it took Shawn and me probably a good 10, 12 episodes to kind of hit our stride. I've been asking these folks to do that in 3 or 4 episodes, or maybe 5 if you're lucky. I think that chemistry, if I can find, one co-host to go forward, that's going to be maybe what I want to do. But if it doesn't work out that way, I have to say I've really enjoyed the process that we've had this year. So folks, I still don't know. That's the TLDR version of this, is I don't know what's going on. I have no secrets to keep, let alone to spill. So just stay tuned and I'll hopefully get news for you during the summer as that progresses. But yeah, we're going to keep going. We just don't yet know exactly what that hosting situation is going to be. Of course, I also have been doing some more things. I've launched Today's Tolkien Times during the season. And folks, please, if you haven't listened to that, please do. It really would help out a little bit. I'm putting a lot of effort into that show, and I want that to be a success. I'm hoping that it will bring new fans to the fandom and to the PPP. But of course, it's more likely to do that if it's gotten more visibility and more followers and more subscribers. So please do that. I've made no secret of the fact that I want this to be, my full-time job for as long as I've got years to work. And right now it is my full-time job. It's just not paying me like one yet. So I'm hoping that the success of a second show will help with that. In the meantime, of course, for those of you who are not already patrons, please consider supporting the show. It makes all the difference in the world. It's what's enabled me to put as much time into this and as much effort into this as I have. So that's kind of the status of the show, the state of the union, as it were. And thank you for indulging me, Matt, in talking about that for a few minutes.
Well, Alan, I've certainly had a wonderful time during my guest co-host
I'm pleased to hear
that. and I think I could speak for all of the content creators who've come on to be guest co-hosts that it's an absolute honor, and we love doing it. And one of the greatest things about this community, the Tolkien fandom, but like you said, the content creator community specifically, you find so much of a collaborative atmosphere and not a competitive one, which is
exactly
which is not the same, that you find in other fandoms. And just as with the Tolkien fandom in general, I think it passes on to the content creators, the fans, everybody. It's different here. It
really
Tolkien
is.
community.
And I think we all benefit as a fandom from that, right? I mean, I think
Absolutely.
that makes it stronger and makes it more just, quality. It's really great.
Yeah.
But you're right. Absolutely. Collaborative, not competitive. And that's
right.
That's really what I think that's what podcasting and YouTubing and all of that needs to be, because there's enough time. People can watch and consume as much of that as they want. This isn't like the old days where if you watched, one show on ABC, you couldn't watch the same, another show on CBS. There's no market share here.
Right. Yeah.
So, no, it's great stuff.
Back in olden times, it was like when Alan would listen to the Lone Ranger
wow.
on the radio. But that meant you couldn't listen to the Green Hornet on the other radio station.
Jeez, Matt. Well, I'd like to announce that Matt's run on the PPP has come to an end. I'm about to tackle 301 solo.
Oh, man. Well, speaking of banding together, Alan, let's revisit our soldiers of Gondor, Rohan, Dol Amroth, and see how they're banding together against the Mouth of Sauron.
Ah, that's right. Well, he hasn't come out yet, but he's about to, and that's where we'll start. So when we last left our guys, they had called forth Sauron. And we talked about how this is a little bit like Fingon calling on Morgoth. Come on out, you coward,
Yeah.
And so is he going to come out? Is he? Well, that's where I'll pick up. There was a long silence, and from wall and gate no cry or sound was heard in answer. But Sauron had already laid his plans, and he had a mind first to play these mice cruelly before he struck to kill. So it was that even as the captains were about to turn away, the silence was broken suddenly. There came a long rolling of great drums like thunder in the mountains, and then a braying of horns that shook the very stones and stunned men's ears. And thereupon the door of the black gate was thrown open with a great clang, and out of it there came an embassy from the Dark Tower. At its head there rode a tall and evil shape, mounted upon a black horse, if horse it was, for it was huge and hideous, and its face was a frightful mask, more like a skull than a living head, and in the sockets of its eyes and in its nostrils there burned a flame. The rider was robed all in black, and black was his lofty helm. Yet this was no ring-wraith, but a living man. The lieutenant of the Tower of Barad-dûr he was, and his name is remembered in no tale, for he himself had forgotten it, and he said, I am the Mouth of Sauron. But it is told that he was a renegade, who came out of the race of those that are named the Black Númenóreans, for they established their dwellings in Middle-earth during the years of Sauron's domination, and they worshipped him, being enamored of evil knowledge. And he entered the service of the Dark Tower when it first rose again, and because of his cunning, he grew ever higher in the Lord's favor, and he learned great sorcery, and knew much of the mind of Sauron, and he was more cruel than any orc. He it was that now rode out, and with him came only a small company of black-harnessed soldiery, and a single banner, black, but bearing on it in red the evil eye. Now, halting a few paces before the captains of the West, he looked them up and down and laughed.
Is there anyone in this rout with authority to treat with me? He asked. Or indeed, with wit to understand me? Not thou, at least, he mocked, turning to Aragorn with scorn. It needs more to make a king than a piece of elvish glass, or a rabble such as this. Why, any brigand of the hills can show as good a following.
Aragorn said naught in answer, but he took the other's eye and held it, and for a moment they strove thus. But soon, though Aragorn did not stir nor move hand to weapon, the other quailed and gave back as if menaced with a blow.
I am a herald and ambassador, and may not be assailed, he cried.
Where such laws hold, said Gandalf, it is also the custom for ambassadors to use less insolence. But no one has threatened you. You have naught to fear from us until your errand is done. But unless your master has come to new wisdom, then with all his servants you will be in great peril.
So, said the messenger, then thou art the spokesman, old greybeard. Have we not heard of thee in wiles, and of thy wanderings, ever hatching plots and mischief at a safe distance? But this time thou hast stuck out thy nose too far, Master Gandalf, and thou shalt see what comes to him who sets his foolish webs before the feet of Sauron the Great. I have tokens that I was bidden to show to thee in especial, if thou shouldst dare to come.
And we'll stop there, mostly for the sake of my throat.
Oh, man. I always love the Mouth of Sauron dialogue.
Oh, it's so fantastic.
It's so great.
You actually get the best bit coming up. The whole, so just, he's so slimy.
Yes,
I love it.
He's the worst, but also kind of the best a little bit.
Yeah, I know. The villains, we talked about this off air, right? The villains in Tolkien are just off the charts amazing,
so
aren't they?
Yeah. So, as Alan said earlier, we start where we left off last week.
Yeah.
We get the call to come forth. So that has been made by the good guys here, and now we get the response. And at first, that response is absolutely nothing. We get total silence.
Yeah, which one expects. But the narrator tells us Sauron was playing games here, right? He already had a plan, and it was intended to be a cruel plan. This is my shocked face. I mean, it's Sauron.
Yeah. What other kind of, does he have any other kind of plans than cruel
that's what
plans?
I'm thinking. Well, do I go dig into my cruel plans, or do I dig into my twisted plans, or do I dig into my perverted plans. I don't know.
I'll just mix them all up together.
There you go.
So as Aragorn and the heralds are about to head back, the response finally comes, and we get drums like thunder and a braying of horns that was deafening.
That must have been just ear-shattering stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just showing that might of Sauron. And braying is, as you might guess, a harsh and loud sound. So these horns don't sound like a donkey, which is another word that uses braying.
That's a good point.
That's a total different meaning, but
the mouth of Sauron comes out on a donkey. That
would be less intimidating than the steed we'll be describing shortly.
Yeah, seriously. There you go. Oh, man. I'm a flying steed. All right. I find it interesting, by the way, not coincidental, that braying is also used in a really, really key moment that involves Sauron's master Melkor. You got to go back to the Ainulindale for this at the very beginning of the Silmarillion. That's the Song of Creation. We read about the Ainur's musical jam session during the third theme, and here's the line. Behold, a third theme grew amid the confusion, and it was unlike the others, for it seemed at first soft and sweet, a mere rippling of gentle sounds and delicate melodies, but it couldn't be quenched, and it took to itself power and profundity. And it seemed at last that there were two musics progressing at one time before the seat of Iluvatar, and they were utterly at variance. The one was deep and wide and beautiful, but slow and blended with an immeasurable sorrow from which its beauty chiefly came. The other had now achieved a unity of its own, but it was loud and vain and endlessly repeated. Now we're getting there. It sounds just like what we're hearing here. And it had little harmony, but rather a clamorous unison as of many trumpets braying upon a few notes. I love that.
Yeah. Now, Alan, I have to ask, was that just an excuse to read from the Silmarillion?
Unapologetically, yes.
Okay.
100%.
Just checking. Now, after the drums and horns, the gate is thrown open and out comes a small group of soldiers. Now, presumably these are orcs, but we're not specifically told.
No, could be men. Yeah.
And along with that, we get a tall and evil shape mounted upon a black horse.
Now, we will talk about that tall and evil shape quite a bit. I mean, this is the Mouth of Sauron. It's kind of his chapter. But can we talk about this horse, or this alleged horse, or this horse-like object upon which he rides? Because this thing is flat out terrifying, right? I mean, a skull-like face, it's huge, and it's got burning flames in its eyes and nostrils. What the heck is this thing?
Yeah, I love that line, if horse it was.
If horse it was.
It's like,
wow.
You don't know Tolkien, who is writing this? Like, what is it? Oh my gosh.
It's terrifying.
I've seen so many artist renditions of this where there are some creepy flipping horses out there, people. Let me tell you.
I got to look that up because this is a really creepy moment. I mean,
yeah. And it kind of reminds me of the Steeds of the Nazgul a little bit, but this is
those are horses.
Level. Those are horses. Those are like, actual black horses.
Yeah, cruelly treated and all of that. But
clearly this is not an ordinary horse. So let's speculate as to what it is. Now, could this be an illusion created by Sauron, who is the master of phantoms?
That's possible, right?
Yeah, another option, maybe an undead beast animated by Sauron the Necromancer.
I like that. I also was wondering maybe if it could be like a Maya fire spirit, right? Like the Balrogs, the Valaraukar were Maiar fire spirits. This could be a Maya fire spirit that's somehow bound to Sauron, who's taken the form of a giant horse. The scariest idea is that maybe it's actually a real horse, twisted by Sauron, sort of like the way he nursed the fell beast with evil meats. Maybe this horse had the leftovers. I don't know.
Carnivorous horse. What?
Man.
That would fit with the terrifying theme that we're going with. It would fit with
the terrifying theme. Maybe instead of having like molars and stuff, it just has all canines and incisors. It opens its mouth and it's like this terrifying mouth of like dog teeth in a horse head. Whoa!
Wow. Okay, so send descriptions of your nightmares tonight to Alan at the Prancing Pony Podcast.
Yeah, seriously.
But now let's get to the rider atop of this hell-steed, robed all in black with a tall black helm. So we immediately think Nazgul, but
I was immediately thinking Johnny Cash. Actually,
oh well, that's another option. That would be interesting. He would go pretty well with my Southern Nazgul, though.
Oh, yeah.
Billy Bob Nazgul.
With Billy Bob Nazgul. Yeah.
Yes. But as we see here, the text tells us, no, it is not Nazgul. And
that's right.
It is also not Johnny Cash.
No, it is not Johnny Cash. It is a man, a living man. So he's not undead. He's not incorporeal. And he's not a spirit or phantom. He's a flesh and blood living man.
That's right. And now we get the text's explanation of who this mysterious person is.
Oh, I love this. Yeah.
But I smell a sidebar coming, so hold on for more.
You've been with the show long enough to know there's a sidebar coming, don't you?
Starting to feel the sidebar spider
little charge
sense
in the air, Yeah.
So his title is the Lieutenant of the Tower of Barad-dûr, or if you're British, Lieutenant.
That's correct, the Lieutenant.
Lieutenant. I don't know where the F goes, but...
I don't know either. But we do know that if he is the Lieutenant, then he's probably also responsible for maintaining the herbs in the in the Tower of Barad-dûr, and not the herbs.
Now, his name is unknown, and it says even he has forgotten it. So he instead introduces himself as the Mouth of Sauron.
Hello, my name is the Mouth of Sauron. It's nice to meet you. How are you tonight? He's got the name tag. Hello, my name is the Mouth of Sauron. Yeah. I have heard people say that because he's forgotten his name, he must be really ancient. And that also follows with this next bit, right? That he comes from the Black Númenóreans. Those are the Kingsmen who made it to Middle-earth before the destruction of Númenor, who worshipped Sauron. But the next line makes it pretty clear he's not that ancient. At least that's the way I'm reading this, right? He joined forces with Sauron when the Dark Tower first rose again. Now, when it first rose, but when it first rose again, so that gives us a very clear time. That's 2951 of the Third Age. The Tale of Years says in that year that Sauron declares himself openly and gathers power in Mordor. He begins the rebuilding of Barad-dûr. That is 68 years ago. So this guy is near retirement age, I'm sure, if Sauron has a retirement plan. I don't want to know what he does for 401k matching. I really don't. But he's not ancient. I don't think he goes back to, thousands of years to the Second Age.
No. And I think there could be some dark sorcery there, as we've seen with the Nazgul are a whole nother thing because they have
they've got the
power.
rings. That's the thing.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I could see, and if he is a Black Númenórean, he has that Númenórean blood like others who live longer, as we see other places in the text. But yeah, he's been around, but not around like Gandalf.
He's like Aragorn's age, not Gandalf's age, right?
Right, yeah. So he rose up the ranks over years due to his cunning. He learned sorcery and appears to have been a confidant of Sauron's to some extent.
Knows more of Sauron than anybody. That's a terrifying thing to know.
So he's close to the big guy here.
Yeah.
And he's also crueler even than any of the orcs.
That's saying something.
Yeah, that says something. We've seen some pretty cruel orcs in our time thus far in this book.
Absolutely. I'm thinking that, he took a class in sorcery, maybe a night class, as he was beginning to work his way up the tower. No, it's, this is a bad guy. Crueler than any of the orcs. Obviously, he's very close to Sauron. He came there, presumably as a young man, the minute that Barad-dûr went up. Like, I want to go serve this guy. That's, what is wrong with this dude, right? I mean, what? I don't want to stay away, but all right. So he approaches with this small band of soldiers. Again, they could be orcs, they could be men, we don't know. All wearing black, with just that single small banner, black with the eye of Sauron in red. And as he approaches and looks at them, he laughs. And this is a recurring theme. And I want you all to recall the Witch King using laughter as well, to mock and sort of condescend. He did that both to Gandalf at the gate and to Éowyn in their confrontation.
Yeah, how did that turn out for him?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, go ask your Witch King guy now, huh?
Yeah, how's that going? So yeah, we've got the Mouth of Sauron here asking if anyone in this motley crew has the authority to negotiate with him.
Exactly. The rout here, by the way, is not, a 17-0 score in the 6th inning. Rout here is a disorderly, tumultuous, or disreputable crowd of persons.
Right. So he's questioning whether anyone there is smart enough to even comprehend him, which I think is kind of the nastiest of his lines here in the early going.
It really is. I mean, do you even have the wit to understand me? Classic smartest guy in the room syndrome. I think we all know this guy. He may not say this out loud, but that's what he's thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he dismisses Aragorn immediately and says it's just a piece of glass and really just 6,000 soldiers. That's all you could do. He's not impressed.
No, he's not.
And here's the first, but not the last time that we see Mr. Mouth here using formal language as a way to show disdain.
That's right. Now, we have talked about this a number of times throughout this season, so I'm not going to rehash it in full, but just a quick reminder that what we often think of as this formal language, thee and thou, that sort of thing, is linguistically a familiar form of address and not that sort of distant or formal form. Tolkien uses it to great effect when Éowyn starts using these forms with Aragorn while he keeps her at arm's length with you. And we went on this for a long time back when Don Marshall was on the show. We spent some time really diving into this topic. But then Tolkien also has people use it to show disdain. Denethor spoke this way to Gandalf at the end in the Pyre of Denethor in their last argument. And here the Mouth uses it to demonstrate that sort of dripping contempt. And in that context, it's more of I can talk down to you like a servant, right? I can use this familiar personal language with you, but you have to use the formal way of addressing me. You have to still use you. I'm above you in station. That's what this is. Yeah.
Yeah. And we see Aragorn, awesome Aragorn, does not take the bait. And I absolutely love this part because all Aragorn does is just stare him down like a boss.
He sure does, man.
And he doesn't move. He doesn't grab the hilt of his sword. He just stares at the guy.
I love it.
And the Mouth of Sauron recoils as if he's being hit and insists that his status as herald and ambassador gives him immunity.
Which, I mean, let's be clear, that absolutely does. Okay, I'm just going to say this right here and now. I know I've said this before. The film's nonsense of having Aragorn gently remove Mouth's head from his body, that is something that Aragorn would never, ever, 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 ever have done. And I do want to chat about this for just a minute or so.
Yeah, historically, both heralds and ambassadors, and we'll talk about the difference here in a second, would have total and complete protection from this kind of conduct. And it's all part of international law now, but long before it was codified, it was simply the way it was, and for a number of reasons.
Yeah, I mean, primarily reciprocity. Even the most aggressive ancient rulers hesitated to mistreat an enemy's ambassadors for the simple reason that he would want his own ambassadors to be able to do their job without being killed.
But let's also talk about those jobs. So the Mouth here claims to be both a herald and ambassador, and those two jobs are separate. So a herald was typically a messenger, the one tasked with bringing a declaration of war by one nation against another. The ambassador was the one who would come in later to negotiate the peace. So the Mouth could certainly be both, and in both roles, he'd have total protection from head chopping and such things.
Well, yeah, sort of like when Leonidas in 300 roars, "This is Sparta," before kicking the Persian emissary into that dangerously open well, which apparently health and safety had not approved that, or I don't know, maybe the railings were on back order. I remember thinking even then that didn't make sense. But here's the thing, that actually did happen in 491 BC. But the Spartans quickly repented after deciding they'd insulted the gods by doing it because they knew they weren't supposed to do that.
Interesting.
You don't kill the messenger.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the killing the messenger thing, that whole concept is very much a thing in domestic stuff. So like, let's say you're the emperor of, some dynasty in China and a messenger from within your country brings you a message that you don't like. You might kill that messenger, but you don't kill the messengers of another force, of another country, because then your guys aren't going to be able to deliver their messages. Yeah.
Interesting.
So obviously there's more here, but I do think that there's some even deeper dives we'll go into. We'll talk about it in a P5. So stick around.
So yeah, he's got immunity, and Gandalf implies as much with his next statement, suggesting that this herald and ambassador speak with less insolence, which I love that part.
I know.
And then he reminds him that he has nothing to fear from these guys.
He does, though, have something to fear from Peter Jackson, apparently.
Yes.
The beheading will come. He does threaten great peril, though, Gandalf does, if this comes to blows. And that's okay, because once the ambassador becomes a combatant, that immunity is gone.
That's right. And Gandalf's intervention here leads the Mouth to ask if he's the spokesman. And he is, really.
Yeah.
Last week we read that there was Gandalf as Chief Herald, and the rest, we read a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was the whole point. Gandalf's the Chief Herald. And that makes the most sense, right? I mean, even Aragorn defers to Gandalf quite wisely, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good move. You should always defer to Gandalf. That's the...
He's the Melian of the Third Age, right? We should all listen to Gandalf.
We should listen to this guy.
Yeah.
So now that the Mouth knows who to go after, he starts mocking Gandalf too, accusing him of devising plots while safely behind the lines.
Cowardly. Yeah.
Yeah, and threatening him since he's stuck out his nose too far.
Which is interesting since Gandalf has a rather prominent nose.
He does. And eyebrows. He doesn't mention the eyebrows.
Bushy eyebrows. Yeah.
Yeah. That go over his hat.
I know. Come on, man.
That would be the easy pickings. I'll cut off your eyebrows, Gandalf.
I'll singe those things. I'll get my horse will just get close to you and sort of exhale. I'll just
put his nostrils
right off. Yeah. Blows air out his nose. Oh man, there's a picture for you. So then we get the mention of the tokens, the things that the Mouth was bidden to show to Gandalf. Now, who would bid him to show these things? Well, Sauron's the only one who's going to have rank over the Mouth. I mean, it certainly seems that way.
Yeah.
So Sauron personally wanted Gandalf to see what we're about to see after the break. Before we get back to the text and whatever it is the Mouth is about to show Gandalf, and my bet is the latest David Day book, we want to make sure you know that even after you listen to this episode, there is a lot more talk going on at the Prancing Pony podcast.
The PPP has an amazing listener community, and they're always coming up with great questions and discussions across all our social media spaces. Check out our common room on Facebook, our dedicated subreddit, Twitter, and more.
On Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast. Follow the page to get the news, but be sure to join the group for some great discussions.
Or if you prefer Reddit, find us there at r/PrancingPonyPod. On Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, we're simply at Prancing Pony Pod.
And finally, like I talked about in the intro, my all-new daily podcast, Today's Tolkien Times, has been live for a few weeks now. It is a short 6 to 8 minute show available wherever you get your podcasts. It's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever. Also available in video form on YouTube. Each weekday features something different, from Third Age Thursday to Silmarillion Saturday. So join me on this new adventure, please. Visit TolkienTimes.com and follow at Tolkien Times on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Now, I wonder if maybe the Mouth might co-write a book with Sauron sometimes. I don't know. Scratch that analogy. Shawn's too nice to be either one of them.
Yeah, but what about you, Alan?
I am a herald and ambassador, sir, and I may not be assailed. I'm just going to use that line over and over again. Next time my son says something smart mouth, I am a herald and ambassador. I may not be assailed. He'll just look at me like I'm nuts. She already does. Folks, of course, I am referring to the book that Shawn and I have written, Why We Love Middle-earth. It is scheduled to release this September, just in time for Hobbit Day and the start of Season 8 of the Prancing Pony podcast. We are both really excited.
Now, Alan, I'm really curious. After this book comes out, when are the letters of Alan and Shawn going to come out?
Letters of Alan and Shawn. Nobody wants those, man.
The emails of Alan and Shawn?
Edited by Matt, the Nerd of the Rings. And half made up by Matt, the Nerd of the Rings.
That would be more accurate. That would be more entertaining.
Also, I don't think anybody wants my emails, sir. I promise you that.
I'll get Katie on. Katie, I bet, could come up with some good made-up content for that.
I'm sure she could, yeah. No, the thing is, I'm not as clever as Tolkien. You read those letters, you're like, wow, this guy's good.
He is.
He's so good. And it's so interesting because he writes the letters differently to everybody. Like the letter he writes to one person is going to have a very different tone than a letter he writes to somebody else. You got to look at who his audience is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, since you're not delivering the emails or letters of Alan and Shawn, why don't you inform people what your book is about here, Alan?
Well, we were talking about the Amazon show, which at the time was like 2 years away, maybe even 3, when we started bandying this idea about. But, so with the Rings of Power and with the War of the Rohirrim, we realized that, there's going to be a lot of new people coming into the fandom that want to learn more about Middle-earth. They want to learn more about Tolkien. They want to learn more about the books. And Why We Love Middle-earth is intended to be a guidebook for folks who are diving into Middle-earth for the first time, while also being the kind of resource that Legendarium veterans can really enjoy. They're going to be looking for more information on a specific aspect of his works or the fandom, or they just want to read a couple of guys spin on all of this. The book's going to be a collection of short chapters that each serve as an introduction either to one of the books, to a topic of study, or to a fan interest or adaptation. And the idea is just to draw readers deeper into Middle-earth as they read along with us.
That's right. And you've sent me the first chapter as well as the table of contents. And I have to say, it's looking like it's going to be a pretty fun read.
I hope so.
And there's plenty of talk about the Legendarium, of course, but also adaptations, online communities, languages, and more.
That's right. And the book is going to mirror the experience of listening to the podcast as much as we can possibly do in a book form. It's asides and digressions, commentary in each of our two voices, plenty of pop culture references, terrible dad jokes, of course. Pre-orders are available now, so please check out our socials and our website for more info. For now, though, let's go ahead and get back into the chapter. Matt, you have been itching to read some Mouth of Sauron dialogue for a very long time, but you're going to have to wait a little while.
Oh.
Because before we get into this next passage, I think this is where we have to fit in that sidebar.
Sidebar. All right, let's do it.
So we've talked about what the text says, but let's look at some other info about this guy.
Yeah, some have assumed that the bit about him being one of the Black Númenóreans means that he's ancient, that he goes back to the Second Age.
Right.
But that really doesn't make any sense given his nature as a living man.
Exactly. And the text doesn't say he is a Black Númenórean. It says he came of the race of those that are named the Black Númenóreans. So he's a descendant of those.
Right.
So if we assume that he was a young man of, let's say, 20 years of age when he heard Sauron openly declare himself in Mordor in 2951, that would make him right around the same age as Aragorn himself. So
yeah. So
old.
I think he's just an older guy.
Yeah, but with Númenórean blood, so he's still quite hale and spry and can ride a horse.
He can ride a horse. He can taunt wizards, and do
right.
all the nasty evil things you would expect a Mouth of Sauron to do.
A lieutenant of Sauron.
A lieutenant.
Yes.
That's right. Now, in the War of the Ring, we get a slightly different version in a draft. No more is said in the draft of the history of the Lieutenant of Barad-dûr, the nameless Mouth of Sauron, than that it is told that he was a living man, who being captured as a youth became a servant of the Dark Tower, and because of his cunning grew high in the Lord's favor. In the fair copy, this was repeated, but was changed subsequently too, but it is said that he was a renegade, son of a house of wise and noble men in Gondor, who becoming enamored of evil knowledge entered the service of the Dark Tower, and because of his cunning and the fertile cruelty of his mind and servility, he grew ever higher in the Lord's favor.
Wow. So, I mean, either way, whether he was a youth who got captured or the son of a nobleman in Gondor, either way, he's clearly a mortal man who came to him in his youth at some point, willing or not. There's also an interesting outline in the War of the Ring, very small little thing. There's a footnote in there, and Christopher Tolkien explains that the Mouth of Sauron appears to have actually had a name at one point, Mordu. Now, no, not the monstrous bear Mordu from the Disney film Brave, though that would be awesome, actually, I have to say. A bear on a horse? Yeah. Give me a bear on a horse, and I'm all over this. This is going to be great. But on the website Eldama, which is an Elvish lexicon online, it is suggested that the name Mordu means Black Knight. And it kind of makes sense because it would come from Morn, black, so that's Mordor, Morwen, all of that. And Du, which is night, like Efil Duath or Nandu Hirion.
Wow.
Black Knight.
Yeah, that seems fitting. Yeah.
Yeah, and not the none shall pass Black Night. The darkness, the time between sundown and sunup night, not the knight wearing armor and carrying a sword. Yes.
Right. Yes. Now, one of the questions about this guy that often comes up is the fact that he says openly that he is the Mouth of Sauron and repeatedly uses the name Sauron. Now, this is in contrast to what Aragorn has previously said, that Sauron does not use his right name nor permit it to be spelt or spoken.
Now, here's the thing. There are a number of possible explanations for this. The first one that comes to my mind is that the translator is using the name Sauron here because it's what the reader would be familiar with. If the Mouth of Sauron comes out and in the text starts talking about, I am the Mouth of Tar-Mydron, nobody's going to know who he's talking about.
Right. And not to forget the fact that in the appendices, we learned that the hobbits have completely different names.
Oh my goodness. Yes. They have like,
mind-blowing.
What in the world?
Crazy names.
Calamac. And I mean, what? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it could also be that the mouth refers to the name Sauron only outside of Sauron's presence and with his permission.
That would make sense. I mean, like, don't call me that in person, but if, that's what the rest of the world knows me as, and you're my ambassador, so to speak. So, okay. There's also this idea, and I almost hate to throw this out there. Aragorn could have just been wrong. I mean, I know, hard to believe, but the mouth isn't really the only one of Sauron's servants to use his name. If we think back to the Council of Elrond, when Glóin is recounting the arrival of a messenger of Sauron to Dain, he said that this messenger asked urgently concerning hobbits, of what kind they were and where they dwelt. For Sauron knows, said he, that one of these was known to you on a time. Later, he is quoted as saying, it is but a trifle that Sauron fancies. Sauron.
Now, I'm curious here. I don't think we had planned to get to this, but the messenger to Erebor, Mouth of Sauron, Nazgul, somebody else. What's your thoughts?
I think we either do get to that or we're going to get to it. I don't remember where I put this information, but I'm landing on that messenger actually being a Nazgul, because on the off chance that they do have the ring and give it up, remember, Sauron would never trust anybody but a Nazgul with it.
But a Nazgul.
Not even the Mouth of Sauron.
That's a great thought.
Otherwise, I would have thought the mouth, because
yes,
that's what he does, right? He's an ambassador. But you're realizing you're dealing with the ring, and it's got to be a Nazgul at that point.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I was I've swayed back and forth between the two because the language is very similar to
the language is sort of condescending tone again,
yes.
A lot more so than you get from the Witch King. But then again, if you look at the Witch King's language to Éowyn and to Gandalf, the times that he speaks, it's got that similar tone, that same.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think really what it is there's a quote from Unfinished Tales that seals the deal for me.
Yep.
Tolkien explains that no others would serve him, that is Sauron, but his mightiest servants, the Ringwraiths, who had no will but his own. And that's, to me, that was the line that clinched it for me, that he just wouldn't trust anybody.
Yeah, that's
but
a good point.
Yep. Otherwise, I think you're right. I mean, the tone fits and the role fits. It's just the ring.
Now, before we move on, there was a paragraph in Paul Coker's Master of Middle-earth that is absolutely worth reading.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, Coker is talking about the nature of evil in Tolkien and says, but Sauron's kingdom consists also of many others who come there voluntarily or under the direct compulsion of his will without the ring. These do not fade into the physical half-world to which the ring reduces its victims. The lieutenant of the Tower of Barad-dûr, for instance, is firmly material, but he hideously resembles those other followers of Sauron in the extent to which he has become absorbed into his master's aims and methods.
Exactly. In fact, Coker goes on to say, he became a student of Sauron's from whom he learned great sorcery and knew much of the mind of Sauron, and he was more cruel than any orc. He ends by being transformed into a replica of his teacher. Mouth of Sauron, he calls himself, a man without any name of his own, for he himself had forgotten it. I love this next part from Coker. He says, considering the high value placed in Tolkien's Middle-earth upon real names as indices of identity, Treebeard and the whole race of dwarves refuse to reveal their names to anybody, and virtually nobody will even pronounce Sauron's aloud in the Black Speech. Such namelessness is the acme of total surrender. Man, that insight about the importance of names is really good in connection with the mouth. Love that.
It makes you think about the fact that, we only know one Nazgul name.
Yeah. Yeah. Khamul's the only one we know.
Yeah. Wow.
And there's a reason why, because does Sauron care what these names are? No. No. And it's just total surrender because nobody else matters. You don't need names. Well, you have waited a very, very long time, Matt. You have waited like 45, 50 minutes by now. So why don't you take the next reading?
All right. He signed to one of his guards, and he came forward bearing a bundle swathed in black cloths. The messenger put these aside, and there, to the wonder and dismay of all the captains, he held up first the short sword that Sam had carried, and next a gray cloak with an elven brooch, and last the coat of mithril mail that Frodo had worn wrapped in his tattered garments. A blackness came before their eyes, and it seemed to them in a moment of silence that the world stood still. But their hearts were dead, and their last hope gone. Pippin, who stood behind Prince Imrahil, sprang forward with a cry of grief. "Silence!" said Gandalf sternly, thrusting him back, but the messenger laughed aloud. "So you have yet another of these imps with you," he cried. "What use you find in them I cannot guess, but to send them as spies into Mordor is beyond even your accustomed folly. Still, I thank him, for it is plain that this brat at least has seen these tokens before, and it would be vain for you to deny them now." "I do not wish to deny them," said Gandalf. "Indeed, I know them all, and all their history, and despite your scorn, foul Mouth of Sauron, you cannot say as much. But why do you bring them here?" "Dwarf coat, elf cloak, blade of the downfallen west, and spy from the little rat land of the Shire. Nay, do not start. We know it well. Here are the marks of a conspiracy. Now, maybe he that bore these things was a creature that you would not grieve to lose, and maybe otherwise. One dear to you, perhaps. If so, take swift counsel with what little wit is left to you. For Sauron does not love spies, and what his fate shall be depends now on your choice." No one answered him, but he saw their faces gray with fear and the horror in their eyes, and he laughed again, for it seemed to him that his sport went well. "Good, good," he said. "He was dear to you, I see. Or else his errand was one that you did not wish to fail. It has. And now he shall endure the slow torment of years, as long and slow as our arts in the great tower can contrive, and never be released, unless maybe when he is changed and broken, so that he may come to you, and you shall see what you have done. This shall surely be, unless you accept my lord's terms."
Oh man, I like your mouth voice.
Oh, thank you.
that slow torment of years bit got me chills. But we'll go back to the beginning of that passage. So the mouth, having mentioned these tokens, signals to one of the soldiers that had accompanied him out of the gate, and that guy brings up something all wrapped up in black.
That's right. After he pulls off the cloths, he first holds up Sam's sword. And recall, this would have been one of the blades of Westerness that Tom Bombadil pulled from the wreck of the barrow and gave one to each of the hobbits.
That's right. Frodo's was shattered by the Witch King at the Ford of Bruinen. Come on down to the Fort of Bruinen and buy your next explorer and get a free blade of Westerness. Merry's was destroyed when he stabbed the Witch King on the Pelennor, as one does. Only Pippin's still remains with its owner right now. Yeah.
Yeah, and then next he pulls out a cloak with its elven brooch. Mm-hmm. And this could have belonged to either Sam or Frodo, so it doesn't really help to confirm who they've captured.
That's a good point.
Now, finally, he shows the mithril coat. And like we talked about in last week's mailbag, This all but clinches that it was Frodo that they captured.
Exactly. But crucially, there's no ring.
That's right. Seeing all these things results in precisely what you'd imagine it would result in. The world comes to a screeching halt. A blackness is in their eyes, and they're probably feeling like they're going to pass out. The text even says that their hearts were dead and their last hope gone.
I mean, that's it, right? I mean, we came all this way for nothing. We're going to die now, and it won't do any good whatsoever because Sauron has captured Frodo. So, Pippin cries out, and honestly, who can blame him, really?
Yeah. This is all a bit much, I feel like, for Pippin.
Poor Pippin, really. I mean, this is too much for any normal person.
Yeah.
So many of the guys have already left because this is too much for them, and Pippin's still here.
That's what I was thinking. Shout out to Pippin, who
seriously
has outlasted some of the men of Gondor and Rohan here.
He could have said, "You know what? I'm going to take on Caer Andros. That sounds more like a Hobbit-sized challenge."
That sounds more my speed. Now, Gandalf pushes him back in place and tells him to be quiet
Yeah.
because but unfortunately it's too late. But Gandalf,
Yeah.
he doesn't want to reveal anything if he can avoid it.
No, Gandalf's playing his cards close to his chest here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really is.
But like I said, it's too late. And so the messenger laughs again contemptuously and uses this as an opportunity to insult the hobbits as well.
Oh, yeah.
And he refers to them as imps and saying that they have no use, certainly not as spies.
He even talks about the rat land of the Shire. Oh man, anybody he can insult, he's going to find a way to insult them. But, he knows, the Mouth does, from Pippin's reaction, that he has seen these things and that now Gandalf in his rout cannot deny them. But that's not a big deal. It's funny. I mean, the Mouth seems to think he scored a win here, but Gandalf's, I don't care. We don't want to deny that.
Yeah. Now, he gets a little lore mastery here, and he says, I know all of these things, and I know all of their history. But you can't say that.
That's right. I know more than you do. You're not the smartest guy in this room.
Right, exactly. And I don't know what the relevance of that is here, but it seems like Gandalf is just trying to keep the Mouth playing defense.
I think so. And then he asks the purpose of this little show and tell, right? Why are you bringing these things? And that's when we get to the fact that Sauron wants something. Oh, I'm shocked, right?
Yeah.
Sauron's using this for leverage because if really, otherwise he would have just killed them all, right? He would just open up the gates and crush them. And that's when we're told what it is that he wants. We're told these are the marks of a conspiracy. After all, there is a mithril coat fashioned by dwarves. There's a cloak clearly made by elves. And there's this Númenórean blade made by faithful men. So it's all of the free peoples.
And not to mention that, we have hobbits involved as well.
Right. It's a hobbit wearing these things.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, they're all in conspiracy against Sauron. He's tried to take over the world before, after all, and he's acting like a conspiracy is a bad thing.
I know, seriously.
Yeah. And the Mouth here plays the card that these things have given him. If the one who had these things is important to you, you're going to have to make an important decision very soon indeed.
Yeah. Now, there's no spoken answer, but he clearly perceives their terror, their horror at this, and he knows that he has the advantage, so he presses. I mean, the Mouth knows what he's doing, and now he's able to push harder. Clearly, this is somebody that you cared about, or you cared about his quest.
Yeah.
First off, that quest has failed. It's over. And this guy, you care about him, he's going to be tortured low and slow. This is like we're gonna. It's like a rack of ribs, right? I mean, this is going to take a long time, and they're going to enjoy the process. Oh, unless you accept Sauron's terms.
Yeah, and we'll note here that in the short paragraph that we skipped, Gandalf tells him to name his terms, and everyone expects him to accept those terms.
Of course,
which is really interesting that the folks on Gandalf's side expect Gandalf to accept them.
Right.
And now this reminds me of the parlay with Saruman and how everyone there thought Gandalf would give in to Saruman.
That's right. I remember that. Saruman's voice was so effective.
Yeah.
That everybody just assumed that Gandalf was going to give in to him.
Yeah. But we'll see here what kind of response Gandalf has in store. Alan, you want to pick us up with the terms? The
terms. And from now on, every time I read an end user license agreement or the terms and conditions, I'm going to read it in the Mouth of Sauron's voice.
There you go. These are the
Which
terms.
is never, because do you ever read those things? I know I don't.
Oh.
All right.
These are the terms,
said the messenger, and smiled as he eyed them one by one.
The rabble of Gondor and its deluded allies shall withdraw at once beyond the Anduin, first taking oaths never again to assail Sauron the Great in arms open or secret. All lands east of the Anduin shall be Sauron's forever, solely. West of the Anduin, as far as the Misty Mountains and the Gap of Rohan, shall be tributary to Mordor, and men there shall bear no weapons, but shall have leave to govern their own affairs. But they shall help to rebuild Isengard, which they have wantonly destroyed, and that shall be Sauron's, and there his lieutenant shall dwell. Not Saruman, but one more worthy of trust.
Looking in the messenger's eyes, they read his thought. He was to be that lieutenant and gather all that remained of the West under his sway. He would be their tyrant, and they his slaves. But Gandalf said,
"This is much to demand for the delivery of one servant, that your master should receive in exchange when he must else fight many a war to gain. Or has the field of Gondor destroyed his hope in war, so that he falls to haggling? And if indeed we rated this prisoner so high, what surety have we that Sauron, the base master of treachery, will keep his part? Where is this prisoner? Let him be brought forth and yielded to us, and then we will consider these demands."
It seemed then to Gandalf, intent, watching him as a man engaged in fencing with a deadly foe, that for the taking of a breath, the messenger was at a loss. Yet swiftly he laughed again.
"Do not bandy words in your insolence with the mouth of Sauron," he cried. "Surety you crave. Sauron gives none. If you sue for his clemency, you must first do his bidding. These are his terms. Take them or leave them."
"These we will take," said Gandalf suddenly. He cast aside his cloak, and a white light shone forth like a sword in that black place. Before his upraised hand, the foul messenger recoiled, and Gandalf, coming, seized and took from him the tokens, coat, cloak, and sword.
"These we will take in memory of our friend," he cried. "But as for your terms, we reject them utterly. Get you gone, for your embassy is over and death is near to you. We did not come here to waste words in treating with Sauron, faithless and accursed, still less with one of his slaves. Begone!"
Oh,
Man.
Gandalf! Woohoo!
Faithless and accursed. I love that.
Beautiful stuff.
I love
Man,
it.
fantastic.
Now, it's clear the messenger is relishing this moment
Oh, yes, he is.
because he looks at each of them. So he clearly feels absolutely secure in his position.
Yeah, absolutely he does. And that's when he names the terms, right? Gondor and its allies are going to go back to the west side of the Anduin. All lands to the east belong to Sauron forever and exclusively.
Yeah, and west from the Anduin, which now serves as a new border,
Right.
all the way up to the Gap of Rohan will be a disarmed tributary.
Right.
So they're going to pay tribute, and they can have some kind of nominal self-rule, but no weapons.
In theory, nominal self-rule.
Yes.
Along with a requirement, by the way, that they rebuild Isengard. And speaking of Isengard, that's going to be Sauron's, and the Mouth will rule there.
Earlier this season, when you and I were tackling the Siege of Gondor chapter, we talked about the Ramas Ecor and its possible parallel to the Maginot Line. As Tom Shippey says, the image of men and labor wasted guarding a wall which served no purpose could hardly fail in the 1950s to remind readers of the Maginot Line, built or half-built in order to secure France forever from German invasion. But in the end, strategically pointless, influential only in contributing to a sense of false security.
Mm-hmm.
After talking it over with Brett Devereaux, we disagreed with Shippey's take on the Ramas as a pure Maginot parallel, but certainly thought it was interesting.
Now, I wanted us to bring that up because right after that bit on the Maginot Line in Author of the Century, Shippey said something that I knew I would want to come back to in this chapter, so I bookmarked it. He writes this: French experience is glanced at also in the encounter near the end of Book 5 with the Mouth of Sauron. He presents the terms of Sauron's offer as follows, but I, meaning Tom Shippey here, gloss them in the language of 20th century history. First, Gondor and its allies are to withdraw beyond the Anduin, taking oaths never again to attack. There will be a peace treaty and an armistice. Second, all lands east of the Anduin shall be Sauron's forever solely. And he puts in parentheses here a great point. Sovereignty over the disputed territory of Ithilien, the Alsace-Lorraine of Middle-earth, is to be transferred. Third, there will be an area west of Anduin which shall be tributary to Mordor, and men there shall bear no weapons, but shall have leave to govern their own affairs. But they'll help to rebuild Isengard. Shippey says this is in effect the creation of a demilitarized zone with what one can only call Vichy status, which will pay war reparations and be governed by what one can again only call a quisling. Shippey goes on to conclude that these terms represent a natural urge to salvage something out of defeat, but an urge which Tolkien's own Western world had learned by recent and bitter experience was even worse than the alternative. Now, that's great stuff, but I got to be honest, if you don't have a lot of World War II background, that may be a little like, wait a minute, what? So I'm just going to do some recapping here. World War II history. First off, the reference to Ithilien as the Alsace-Lorraine of Middle-earth is a good one. This was a territory on the border of France and Germany that was in dispute for some time. France ceded it to Germany in 1871 after the Franco-Prussian War, but then it was given back to France in the Treaty of Versailles after World War I. And then in 1940, after Hitler invaded France and you had the Vichy government, Alsace-Lorraine was once more transferred back to Germany. And then, of course, it got back to France at the end of World War II.
Now, that brings us to Shippy's mention of Vichy status and a quisling. Vichy France was the French state during World War II after the harsh terms of its armistice with Nazi Germany. Now, that brings in the idea of a quisling. It's a word originally a name of a Nazi collaborator from Norway by the name of Vidkun Quisling, that came to mean a citizen or politician of an occupied country who collaborates with an enemy occupying force, or more briefly, a traitor.
A traitor. I like that. Yeah. And that's really what we're talking about here. Obviously, the Mouth isn't a traitor, but the idea is that they're going to be ruled over by somebody who's not really on their side. Now, with that all too brief recap, and frankly, where's Brett when you need him? Hopefully you all have a better understanding of the nature of these terms, what recent historical events might have influenced Tolkien as he was writing them, and how contemporaries would have read them.
Yeah. Now, returning back to Middle-earth here.
Yes, please.
Gandalf sees right through the absurd nature of these demands.
They really are.
And he plays a pretty good hand here. Now, Sauron wants the results of victory in war without, actually fighting the war.
It is pretty funny. He's literally asking for everything he would get.
Yes.
If he were to win the war. And Gandalf, I love this. He even refers to the victory of Gondor and the Pelennor. He's clearly getting a dig in.
Yeah.
Suggesting that it has destroyed Sauron's hope in war as a means to an end. And then he has the guts to ask for surety. Now, that's a guarantee. In this case, proof that the prisoner is alive and will be given to them if they accede to these terms.
Now, this rather seems to unsettle Mr. Mouth, but all too briefly before he once again laughs.
Yep.
And that's the fourth time in just a few moments that he's laughed in mockery.
Yeah, I don't think it's that he has a great sense of humor, though maybe he puts that on his dating profiles. Like long walks to the Black Gate. I laugh a lot. I'm the smartest guy in the room.
Equestrian skills.
Equestrian. That's right. He's trying to hint at his immense wealth, of course. Powerful position. I know leaders of countries. Yeah. So then he makes this an ultimatum, right? I mean, we're done here. The Mouth says no guarantees. You want your prisoner? You do what he says. Take it or leave it.
Yeah. And this is a good time to talk again about what we think Gandalf knows or believes at this point.
Absolutely. I mean, we talked about in the mailbag question last week. It is evident to Gandalf that Sauron does not have the ring. Remember, Gandalf bears Narya and would know if Sauron put on the One Ring.
That's right. And also, like we talked about, it's painfully obvious that they have only captured one of the two hobbits, not both.
That is huge. And I don't think the Mouth realizes how much he's giving away by saying, you have one of these imps. And we keep talking about him. And by only capturing the one and by not even being aware that there's another, he's giving Gandalf really a trump card to play here.
Yeah.
And that's what he's done. So the knowledge of both of these things gives Gandalf this upper hand in the conversation. It's something the Mouth really could not have expected.
Yeah. So coming back to that ultimatum, Gandalf has thoughts and he expresses them in a dramatic fashion.
Oh, yes, he does. Yeah.
And he says, "These we will take." And it certainly sounds like he's accepting the terms initially.
Yeah, these we will take. You're right. But then he reveals his light, just as he has before against the forces of Sauron, primarily against the Nazgul. And this time the light is described as like a sword. It's like weaponized light. And it causes the Mouth to recoil. And that's when Gandalf just walks right up on his horse and takes the stuff.
That's right. And he reiterates that we'll take these, but it's now clear that he means the objects.
That's right. The in memory of our friend, though, man, I want to touch on that because it sure seems to me as though Gandalf is expressing either a belief or an acceptance of the likelihood that Frodo is dead. What do you think?
Yeah, I think with the mithril coat is the clincher there for me that makes me think like,
You had to
Gandalf
take that off his body.
Yes. Yeah. So like, what is this, if I'm Gandalf, I'm thinking, what is the possible circumstance where they get Frodo's mithril, but not Frodo himself?
And yet also not the ring.
Right. And so that's where, like we talked about, the possibility of Sam now being the ring bearer.
And now the whole quest of the whole future Middle Earth hangs on one gardener's ability to climb a mountain.
That's right.
Yeah, one overweight gardener. Though actually, I don't think Book Sam is. I know that Jackson made a kind of a big deal of that. He wanted him to be heavier set, and poor Shawn Astin had to gain weight for the role. But yeah, I don't know that Book Sam is necessarily unfit.
I think he's just more so young and little naive, I guess, and stuff.
Definitely that. He's definitely that. But yeah, I think Gandalf is maybe not expressing belief so much as just an acceptance of that likelihood or possibility.
Yeah, an interesting hypothetical to wonder what Gandalf is thinking in this moment.
Yeah, it really is.
Because it's such a bizarre circumstance for them to have the mithril coat but not the ring.
Yeah,
like
how does that happen?
How does that happen? And
I mean, that's still like still
obviously we know it does happen, but
yeah.
But then we see that he completely rejects the terms and tells the mouth to get himself gone.
Yeah, you don't got to go home, but you can't stay here. We weren't here to offer terms or accept terms. We were here to tell Sauron, get out or die.
Yeah, and we sure aren't here to waste words with the mouth.
Ooh.
Who he calls a slave.
The slave. That's not going to make the Mouth of Sauron very happy. No. It feels a little bit, though, like the way he spoke to Wormtongue and Edoras. Were you reminded of that? I mean, that's absolutely. We did not come here to do this. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that line? I have not passed through fire and death to bandy crooked words with a serving man till the lightning falls. Great line. Absolutely. Fantastic line. Yeah.
And then in the section we skipped, we see the mouth's stunned reaction.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no more laughter.
Mm-hmm.
There's just
no.
There's just a surprised anger. And he's compared to a predator that gets hit on the nose by his prey.
Boop. I mean, just like, what just happened? Wait a minute. Yeah. I love this reaction, though. His mouth slavered and shapeless sounds of fury came strangling from his throat. I think he wants to speak with Gandalf's manager. I mean, he's just absolutely beside himself. The guy can't even get words out.
It did not go the way he anticipated.
No, this did not go the way he anticipated, but he doesn't really care because he's got a plan. After all this anger, he succumbs to fear, turns and rides away, but that's okay because now his soldiers blow their horns and oh crap. The trap is sprung, and that's where you're going to pick up. Let's do this.
Drums rolled and fires leapt up. The great doors of the black gate swung back wide. Out of it streamed a great host as swiftly as swirling waters when a sluice is lifted. The captains mounted again and rode back, and from the host of Mordor there went up a jeering yell. Dust rose smothering the air, as from nearby there marched up an army of Easterlings that had waited for the signal in the shadows of the Eredlithwi, beyond the further tower. Down from the other hills on either side of the Morannon poured orcs innumerable. The men of the west were trapped, and soon, all about the grey mounds where they stood, forces 10 times, and more than 10 times their match, would ring them in a sea of enemies. Sauron had taken the proffered bait in jaws of steel. Little time was left to Aragorn for the ordering of his battle. Upon one hill he stood with Gandalf, and there fair and desperate was raised the banner of the tree and stars. Upon the other hill hard by stood the banners of Rohan and Dol Amroth, White Horse and Silver Swan, and about each hill a ring was made facing all ways, bristling with spear and sword. But in the front towards Mordor, where the first bitter assault would come, there stood the sons of Elrond on the left, with the Dunedain about them, and on the right the Prince Imrahil with the men of Dol Amroth tall and fair, and picked men of the Tower of Guard. The wind blew and the trumpets sang and arrows whined. But the sun now climbing toward the south was veiled in the reeks of Mordor, and through a threatening haze it gleamed, remote, a sullen red, as if it were the ending of the day, or the end maybe of all the world of light. And out of the gathering murk the Nazgul came, with their cold voices crying words of death, and then all hope was quenched.
Oh my. Yeah, I this is it. All hope is quenched. There's no hope. Wow. That trap is huge, right? We talked about the trap is sprung, and that is a huge trap. It is overkill, really. I mean, This is Sauron ready to absolutely annihilate them. I love this, by the way. At the beginning of the passage you read, the size of the opposing forces are described over and over in terms related to water.
Yeah, we see a great host streamed as swiftly as swirling waters when a sluice is lifted.
Yeah.
And we also had down from hills poured orcs innumerable and ring them in a sea of enemies.
Wow. I love that because it strikes me as a way of expressing sort of this inevitability of defeat, right? The inability, the total inability of the army of the West to even stand in the face of the oncoming flood of foes. You imagine a flood, a tidal wave or something like, you can't stand against it. There's nothing you can do. You can be strong. You can be tough. You can have all the weapons in the world and all the skill. There's just too much mass. There's too much water coming at you. And it made me think of the great wave, right? The dream given to Faramir. He tells Eowyn, and this is something we'll get to next year, the waiting reminds him of Numenor. He says, of the land of Westerness that foundered, and of the great dark wave climbing over the green lands and above the hills and coming on, darkness unescapable. And that's what this is.
Yeah.
It's described in those same watery terms, and it is darkness unescapable. It is an unavoidable thing, an unstoppable force.
Yeah. And the numbers we're talking about here are huge.
Yes.
It says 10 times and more than 10 times their match. And as we've discussed before, they're about 6,000 in number now. So we're looking at more than 60,000 soldiers.
That's insane.
That is made up of Easterlings, orcs, and as we're about to see, trolls.
Yeah. So the good guys prepare as quickly as they can for the inevitable crushing attack. They don't have time for a great speech. Though I will say, in fairness, I have to say this because Jackson may have botched the whole Aragorn chopping the head off the ambassador deal. He did give Aragorn like the most cool speech ever.
Pretty great speech.
That Stand Men of the West thing still gives me chills every time I hear it. It is fantastic. And then that little phrase at the very end.
For Frodo. Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's just so tears every time. Who's cutting onions? It's fantastic. But yeah, there's no time for a speech now. I mean, the good guys are preparing as fast as they can. You've got Easterlings coming from one side. You've got orcs innumerable from both sides. You've got Aragorn on one hill with Gandalf raising the banner of Elendil, while the other one has the banners of Rohan and Dol Amroth. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are rings on both hills with elite troops facing Mordor on each of the hills. Now we saw the Sons of Elrond and the Dunedain on the left, and then Imrahil, the men of Dol Amroth, and a few of the Tower Guard on the right.
You know, I love that. And I want to go back also to a line that I don't think I put in our notes, but really loved when you read it. I don't know that it struck me when I was preparing the chapter, but upon the one hill he stood with Gandalf, and there, fair and desperate. What a combination of words. It beautiful. There's a beauty here to the banner of the tree and stars, but there's a desperation.
Yeah.
And it is this conjunction, this really almost it's not really a paradox, but you know what I mean? They're contradictory terms in a way, and yet they're not. It's just a fantastic phrase. Fair and desperate isn't something you hear.
Yeah. And it's totally different than when we saw the banner unfurled, you know, when
So
Aragorn
different.
comes to the Pelennor Fields.
Yeah, doesn't look like a you catastrophe right now.
No, it does not.
No. I do love, though, the description of the other banners, the Rohan and Dol Amroth, White Horse and Silver Swan.
Mm-hmm.
It does also sound a little bit like maybe some 70s prog rock bands at a festival. We're going to go see White Horse and Silver Swan. You want to come with? You know, I mean, but This is quite a sight. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get 2 bits about the weather here.
That's right. We get the wind blowing. And remember, there's a lot of significance about the wind, as we've talked about, and the trumpet singing while the fight begins, first with archery, as it would.
Yeah. And then the sun seems to indicate the end of all things, not just day, but the world of light.
Wow. This is everything coming to an end right here.
And I mean, gosh, that's just the end of the world of light. That's just crazy. And just so heart-wrenching. It's like this could be where darkness takes over forever. Now, this wind still hasn't been able to dislodge that haze of Mordor that we've talked about before.
No, I mean, the haze sticks around. Mordor's darkness is still very powerful this close to well, it is Mordor. I mean, this is not like the winds that blew away the darkness over the Battle of the Pelennor. And finally, the Nazgûl show up. As if the more than 10-1 numbers aren't a big enough advantage, Like we said, this is intended to wipe out not just the army of men, but the hope that this army of men might have. Don't even let them think they have a chance.
Yeah. And it does. The text here tells us all hope was quenched.
Again, with another water term.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Man, this is powerful stuff. And it's that same kind of idea, right? You could have the biggest bonfire going, but when that wave comes over, it's out. And it's going to quench that hope. Yeah. Is it despair yet, though? We've talked about sort of that hope-despair spectrum. Clearly, they're at 0 hope now, right? Mm-hmm. There's no positive number of hope. But have they sunk into despair? I mean, I can't speak for every guy in the, on both hills, but I dare say you're still not going to see despair.
Yeah.
In Gandalf and Aragorn and the like.
Right. Yeah. I think there's certain characters that they might say, okay, this is it. This is how. Yeah. This is how I go out.
This is how it ends. Yeah.
Because like we've talked about before, the timing of this whole endeavor, like they could, what if Frodo destroys the ring? What if the ring gets destroyed rather an hour later? They're all dead. Like, yay, Middle Earth saved, but they're all dead.
That's right.
You guys don't have any kings for your Manish realms. Sorry.
Right. None at all. You're all gone. Man.
So I think even if they're not to the despair point, I think even like for themselves at least, it makes total sense that their hope would be gone. And it's like, okay, this like I'm going out. Yeah. Let's make a fight of it.
This is the Beowulf moment. This is the circle of light. And now the backs are against the wall and the monsters are there, and this is how it ends. Yeah.
Well, with that, Alan, you want to get to our last reading of the night?
End of the chapter, end of the book, end of the season?
Yeah.
No, not really. Wow. I don't, but I mean, I guess I do. Wow. Yeah. I'm this time next year will be heartbreaking. I can't even imagine reading the last passages of book 6, but let me finish up book 5 for us.
All right.
Pippin had bowed crushed with horror when he heard Gandalf reject the terms and doom Frodo to the torment of the tower. But he had mastered himself. And now he stood beside Baragon in the front rank of Gondor with Imrahil's men. For it seemed best to him to die soon and leave the bitter story of his life, since all was in ruin. "I wish Merry was here," he heard himself saying, and quick thoughts raced through his mind, even as he watched the enemy come charging to the assault. Well, now at any rate I understand poor Denethor a little better. We might die together, Merry and I. And since die we must, why not? Well, as he is not here, I hope he'll find an easier end. But now I must do my best. He drew his sword and looked at it, and the intertwining shapes of red and gold, and the flowing characters of Numenor glinted like fire upon the blade. This was made for just such an hour, he thought. If only I could smite that foul messenger with it. Then almost I should draw level with old Mary. Well, I'll smite some of this beastly brood before the end. I wish I could see cool sunlight and green grass again. Then, even as he thought these things, the first assault crashed into them. The orcs, hindered by the mires that lay before the hills, halted and poured their arrows into the defending ranks. But through them there came striding up, roaring like beasts, a great company of hill trolls out of Gorgoroth. Taller and broader than men they were, and they were clad only in close-fitting mesh of horny scales, or maybe that was their hideous hide. But they bore round bucklers huge and black, and wielded heavy hammers in their knotted hands. Reckless they sprang into the pools and waded across, bellowing as they came. Like a storm they broke upon the line of the men of Gondor, and beat upon helm and head and arm and shield, as smiths hewing the hot bending iron. At Pippin's side, Baragon was stunned and overborne, and he fell. And the great troll chief that smote him down bent over him, reaching out a clutching claw, for these fell creatures would bite the throats of those that they threw down. Then Pippin stabbed upwards, and the written blade of Westernesse pierced through the hide and went deep into the vitals of the troll, and his black blood came gushing out. He toppled forward and came crashing down like a falling rock, burying those beneath him. Blackness and stench and crushing pain came upon Pippin, and his mind fell away into a great darkness. So it ends as I guessed it would, his thought said, even as it fluttered away. And it laughed a little within him ere it fled. Almost gay it seemed, to be casting off at last all doubt and care and fear. And then, even as it winged away into forgetfulness, it heard voices, and they seemed to be crying in some forgotten world far above, "The eagles are coming! The eagles are coming!" For one moment more, Pippin's thought hovered. "Bilbo," it said. But no, that came in his tale, long, long ago. This is my tale, and it is ended now. Goodbye. And his thought fled far away, and his eyes saw no more. Wow. Tolkien does that stuff so well. These little cliffhangers, you know.
Well, and this is a heck of a cliffhanger, because then we're going to switch back and go back in time to catch up with Gollum, catch up with Gollum, Frodo, and Sam.
I know.
Oh my gosh. So for this final section of the chapter, we switch to Pippin's perspective.
Yes.
And again, it's a powerful and effective way to put us in the midst of the battle, because Pippin, like we would be in this situation.
Oh, totally.
Is overwhelmed, thoughts rushing, time stretching, then rushing. And it's just,
it's amazing.
Crazy.
This whole chapter has been from sort of this omniscient narrator, somebody watching the thing happen, able to tell us about the Mouth of Sauron and all of that stuff. Switching to Pippin here is genius.
Yeah.
I mean, it absolutely brings us right into the battle, into that very moment. And it's, once again, it's that epistemic regime at work, right? It's the way that Tolkien puts us in the shoes of the least knowledgeable character in the scene.
Yeah. And it starts with his reaction to Gandalf's refusal of the terms.
Yeah.
And it says that Pippin was crushed with horror, believing that Gandalf's answer would doom Frodo to a lifetime of torture.
That would be a terrible thing to be thinking about, right?
Yeah.
You Gandalf, you just sentenced Frodo, who is still relatively young, to 50, 60, 70 years of torment in the Black Tower. But he does recover enough to stand next to Baragon, and I love that he's standing next to Baragon in line with the other men of Gondor, and that includes some of Imrahil's men. Yeah.
Yeah, and surprising precisely no one, he wishes Merry was there with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's both of these guys are going to be wishing they were near the other. I love this line, though, about quick thoughts raced even as he watched the enemy come charging. You have to wonder how much of this is from Tolkien's firsthand experience in World War I.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me, and somebody obviously who thankfully has never faced combat, that this would be the kind of moment that would cause that experience of time briefly slowing and thoughts just flooding and racing, and like your brain is running at 10 times normal speed.
Yeah. It's kind of fitting that I would be here for this after we did the Siege of Gondor, when we had so much to do with Denethor, because we find here that Pippin finds himself with a bit of empathy towards Denethor, and crazily enough, his decision, and this is going to be a hard end, and maybe choosing your own end is understandable.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Pippin knows that it's still the wrong decision.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
He has some empathy for Denethor's tough spot. Yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of reminds me of, and you'll get to this in later seasons with the tale of Aragorn and Arwen, when Arwen says she understands the Númenóreans and why they fell to evil.
Now I understand why they wanted eternal life.
Yeah.
I get it now.
It's wild stuff. Like those moments of empathy for characters that, you kind of look at and you think, gosh, they did some really bad stuff.
Yeah.
But return to Pippin here, he accepts his coming death. And while he wishes it could have been together with Merry, he can only wish Merry an easier end. And after all, he knows it's all over for everyone now since they're going to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now Sauron's forces are not going to have anybody to stop them. There's not even a speed bump now. And then he concludes this inner monologue for now with the determination to do his best. And this is that Beowulfian moment in miniature. It is lovely. So he pulls out that blade of Westerness, and it's almost the last remaining example, as we talked about earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, Frodo's was broke over by the Bruinen, Merry's melted on the Pelennor, and Sam's is in Gandalf's possession, and he seems unlikely to use it.
Yeah, Gandalf's not going to be pulling out a tiny sword now. I love the moment, though. Again, this is that sort of brain working at 10 times speed here, right? He even has time to note the shapes and the colors and the lettering on the blade. I don't know about you. That's not something I'm going to be taking my time to look at in this moment.
Right.
But I think that's trying to show us that for Pippin, he's noticing all these things right now. He's able to think lucidly and quickly as the enemy approaches. He even takes a moment to remember his history, right? This blade was made for a moment like this.
Yeah. And he thinks that if he can kill the messenger, he just about equal Merry's task. So he's, that would have been an interesting alternative way for Tolkien to go about this, to have Pippin take out the Mouth of Sauron.
Yeah. I mean, it's not quite the same as the Witch King, but it is pretty close, I admit.
Yeah.
He concludes this sort of second part of his inner monologue with the recognition that, maybe I may not kill the mouth, but I'm going to kill some of these creatures before I die. And then sort of out of nowhere, he says, I sure would have liked to have seen green grass and sunlight. I would have liked to have seen the Shire, I think is what he's saying right here. Yeah. Or something Shire-like. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's no more time for thoughts at this point because the assault crashes into his line. First, we see the orcs slow down by the pools of mire.
Yeah. Talked about that, huh?
Yeah. And just as we speculated last week.
Yeah. They get slowed down, right?
Yeah. They get slowed down. And so therefore they start shooting arrows.
Exactly. Which is what you do. In the meantime, the trolls have arrived, and these are not Tom, Bert, and William, right? We're long past the trolls of the Hobbit. This is a great company of trolls. These are big ones. These are taller and broader than men.
Yeah, and they're either wearing some kind of armor that's scaled, or they possessed a naturally scaly hide, and they come carrying huge shields and heavy hammers.
Oh, man. They are not slowed down by the mire. They don't care. They are coming hard and fast. We get this moment when they hit the line, and just the violence in the text, the way Tolkien describes this, the way they're smashing heads and shield arms. And, it is intense. And then Baragon, one of our favorite characters, one of our favorite little characters in the book, Baragon falls before the troll chief. Watch out.
Yeah, and the narrator tells us about the troll's mid-battle snacking habit.
Yeah, yuck.
Yikes.
We just reach down and bite the throats out of their fallen enemies. This is...
Yeah, so we're expecting that to happen to Baragon here.
Yeah. Don't tell Birgil. So Pippin goes to protect Baragon, and he stabs up, right, through the troll's hide. So, okay, now we know it's hide and not armor. And deep into his organs, right? So he causes this massive flow of black troll's blood. That's disgusting. But this is battle, right? This is the least of your concerns. Is that now I'm going to have to change my shirt,
right?
Needless to say, a troll falling causes a lot of other problems. Not the least of which is asphyxiation. Those beneath him are buried, including Pippin.
Yeah, and we see that Pippin is overwhelmed by the stench, darkness, and pain.
Yes.
And he feels his consciousness starting to fade.
And that leads us to his last inner monologue that ends the entirety of book 5, right? His thought, I love this, right? As it starts to fade, as it starts to leave him, his thought is almost given independent sentience right here. It is disembodied. It's fluttering away. It's laughing, casting off fear. It's doing the things that a person would do, but this is just his thought.
Yeah, and interestingly, it's this thought, not Pippin himself, that's described as hearing the voices crying out, "The eagles are coming."
Oh, what a moment.
And of course, this brings to mind Bilbo and his tales of the Battle of the Five Armies.
That's right. Now, that disconnect troubles Pippin's thought for just a moment, right? Oh, no, that was his story. This one's mine. And this is the one in which I am dying.
Yeah, and then we get the final line that his thought fled and his eyes saw no more.
Oh, that just kills me because,
Yeah.
We don't learn about Pippin's survival of this until very near the end of the chapter, the Field of Cormallen.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen right away. It's not like Frodo wakes up and there's Gandalf and Aragorn and Pippin and Legolas and Gimli. It's one at a time, right? We see Gandalf first, and then eventually we're introduced to Aragorn. And it's only later when they're like having a celebration and there's a couple of guys coming out basically bringing trays of food.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute.
That's
Those
fitting.
guys look familiar. Oh, it's Pippin and Merry. So we really don't know. And the first time reader is once again, just like with Gandalf's death, I would say with Frodo's death, but I think with Frodo, we actually don't have that be the cliffhanger. Sam knows that the book ends with Sam knowing that he's been captured and he's alive, but captured by the enemy. Thank goodness, because that would have been another brutal cliffhanger.
Yeah, it would have.
But yeah, we don't know about Pippin. I do love, by the way, and just a side note, the alliteration in some of this stuff about the battle. The clutching claw, the black blood that came crashing, burying beneath. Oh,
he has, so much alliteration that Tolkien uses. So brilliant.
So good at this stuff. So it ends as I guessed it would, his thought said, even as it fluttered away. And it forgot the mail once more ere it fled, relieved to be casting off at last all responsibility and obligation. As it winged away into ale-drenched forgetfulness, it heard voices. Where is the mail, Barliman? I'm glad I don't have to do this for a few months. It's a little bit of a challenge, but it's been fun. Tonight, though, instead of having Matt ask the first question, I'm going to let him ask the second one, and you'll understand why when we get there. So for now, I'm going to take the first one. Tanner from Oregon has a really solid question, Matt. Why was Sauron not physically present at the Battle of the Morannon or even the Battle of the Pelennor Fields? He was physically present during the War of the Last Alliance. Did he fear for himself now that he was without the ring?
This is interesting. Maybe we should go back to the question we answered last week about his physical form and change our minds.
That's right. Yeah, maybe he's just an eyeball. And that's
we'll just stick him as an eyeball on top of the Barad-dûr, and that solves both. And then we're covered.
I like that.
But we made our giant lava bed, and now we have to sleep in it. So Sauron has a physical form. Yeah. We've solidified that. He goes places. We read about the orcs discussing Frodo and saying he doesn't go anywhere unless Sauron calls for him or comes himself.
Right.
Or we had Denethor talking about how Sauron would come to gloat over him after the defeat of Gondor. Yeah. So why can't he turn off Netflix, get off the couch, and show up to this battle?
He's binging something really cool. He's just a bit busy. Yeah.
Watching Stranger Things, guys.
There.
I think there's a number of factors at play here, and I don't know it's any one of them more than any of the others. Okay. And first, it's just what he does. Heck, it's what his old boss did. From the Silmarillion, in Angband, Morgoth forged for himself a great crown of iron, and he called himself King of the World. That crown he never took from his head, though its weight became a deadly weariness. Never but once only did he depart for a while secretly from his domain in the north. Seldom indeed did he leave the deep places of his fortress, but governed his armies from his northern throne. And once only also did he himself wield weapon, while his realm lasted. And let's just say that one time didn't go quite so well as he might have liked.
It didn't, no.
And I'm pretty sure he'd rather not have come out to face Fingolfin.
Yeah. I mean, sure, he did win, but he went halt ever after, right? I mean,
yeah. He's limping around ever since.
Exactly.
You know? And then there's the Siege of Barad-dûr at the end of the Second Age. And that's in 3434 when the Last Alliance entered Mordor. It took 7 years of a siege by the largest army ever assembled to get Sauron to come out and fight. And here the force standing at the gate is smaller than the vanguard of the Last Alliance and has no chance of breaking through this gate. So there's really no reason for Sauron to risk his physical presence. And that right there is another reason, the risk to Sauron.
Exactly. I mean, his record in personal combat is mixed, to say the least, right? I mean, yes, he defeated Celebrimbor during that war in the Second Age. I mean, everybody knows Banner, Pincushion, Celebrimbor. He captures Minas Tirith in the First Age. That's the one on Tol Sirion, not the one on the Pelennor Fields. But he was also beaten by a talking dog. Ar-Pharazôn made him surrender. Well, okay, made is a strong word. He was pretty happy to surrender, but his armies were not about to fight the Númenóreans. They were that strong. Gil-galad and Elendil killed him. Well, kind of killed him, allowing Isildur to take the ring. He runs away from the White Council when he left Dol Guldur. The guy's mostly just not a fighter. It's not his job. It's not his thing.
Yeah, I think we see this, as we said, with both Morgoth and Sauron. When you can have other people fight and die instead of you,
right?
You do that. Yeah.
That's what C-level suites mean. You know,
yes.
When you're the CEO, it means you don't get down on the floor and make the crap. You hire people to do that.
That's right. And I mean, you know, Aragorn he's kind of a throwback to Elendil, you know, in a lot of ways. And maybe Sauron sees that and thinks twice about
last time I faced off against a really tall Númenórean.
This is the heir of Elendil who, oh, by the way, took me out last time, and it took me 1,000 years to regain my form.
Yeah. Man,
it's
and
a
I
lot
complain
of work.
that it takes me a year to lose weight after Christmas.
Right,
You know?
yeah. Like, it takes
1,000 years to regain my form. Yeah, that would be problems. Yeah, that's a good point. I think seeing Aragorn almost as a second Elendil is definitely on Sauron's mind. I also think that he is weaker than he was when he faced off against Elendil because he's not currently in possession of the ring.
Right.
So you combine that weakness with Aragorn's, you know, arguable equivalence to Elendil. And he's like, I don't see the point. Why do I need to come out?
Yeah, right.
I mean, if it took Elendil's army and Gil-galad's army 7 years to get the guy to come out, you're not going to get him to come out after 5 minutes.
And this is nothing. Like we said, this is 6,000 soldiers. He's got over 60,000. This battle's going to be over in 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Plus the Nazgul. Well, we still have time for this last one, right?
Absolutely, we do. And it's an interesting one, though I might need to step away while you answer. Sam from Wyoming asks, who has been your favorite co-host this season?
Man.
To make this fair, let me amend the question. Who has been your favorite co-host this season, not named Matt?
That is a bold position, my friend.
Well, you wrote it for me, so.
That's fair. Tough question, Sam. It really is a tough question, and one that, in all honesty, I obviously can't answer. I mean, I guess if I was forced to, I would say my favorite co-host was the Lord of the Mark when he came back for the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, but that's cheating, right?
No, that's the answer we want to hear, man.
I know, but I think the question really was to find out my opinion on the incredible co-hosts that have joined me this season. Now, that means, of course, I can't answer that question, not just because I'm tactful and diplomatic and kind and don't want to be skewered alive when I go to Oxenmoot and see at least half of them, but because every single one of them really did, like I said earlier, bring something unique and valuable to the common room. I learned different things, different viewpoints, different ways of looking at the text from each of them. The season started with Corey Olsen, and honestly, could I have had a better co-host to start out with, right? I mean, it was perfect timing. My community is pretty familiar with him and enjoys listening to him. I didn't have to do a lot of coaching on how to actually record a podcast. This certainly wasn't his first rodeo. And of course, he has more Tolkien knowledge than Shawn and I ever did combined. And, you know, that certainly is a nice safety net leading off this whole new experiment, right?
I think he has more Tolkien knowledge than like all of us combined.
I know. He's forgotten more than I'll ever know. Yeah. And of course, it doesn't hurt that he's also one of the nicest people around. I really
absolutely.
hanging out with him for a few episodes was so much fun. Shawn Gunner joined me, and the poor guy had some big shoes to fill, right? I mean, it's one thing after Sean Marchese, but now it's another thing after Corey Olsen. He joins me for the rest of Minas Tirith and immediately demonstrated that chemistry that he and I have, this sort of banter and insults that we throw back and forth that we really have ever since the first time I went to an Oxenmoot, nearly 5 years ago now. He's easy to work with, funny, enjoyable. He knows his Tolkien, and as the chair of the Tolkien Society, has a really proven commitment to the Tolkien community. Yeah. And then the obscure Lord of the Rings facts guy shows up, Don Marshall, my Tolkien son, a consummate pro who rolls in with, the ability to handle these last minute changes. He has a great reading voice, an endearing personality for at least an hour, truly unique insights. His handling of our Questions After Nightfall episode with some really hard live questions was something to behold. And getting to spend 5 weeks with my son was a lot of fun. And if you're not following him on TikTok, you need to. Next up was James Tauber. Now, of course, I'd had the privilege of working with him on Rings of Power Wrap-Up, but that shows a whole different kettle of fish. Fact is, for James, it just didn't matter. He took to it naturally. He did a fantastic job on discussion points, really opening up some different things that I'd never considered before, and reading with that, let's be honest, always enjoyable accent. I could listen to him read all day. Our little interview with John Garth really highlighted how good he is at that sort of thing. His understanding of the text, so detailed, it's just out of this world. The passion that he puts into the Digital Tolkien Project. Again, another one of these guys who just does so much for the community. And then there's this guy right here. Yeah, I'm pointing at you. If he's still around, right? If you haven't made good on your walk away while I answer this thing.
You woke me up. I was dozing off a little bit.
That's right. Matt from the Nerd of the Rings. Here's a video guy doing an audio podcast, but it didn't faze you in the least. You hit the ground running immediately by helping me interview Dr. Brett Devereaux before we dove into, frankly, one of the most intense chapters in the entire Lord of the Rings, the Siege of Gondor. You're honestly maybe the only co-host who's a bigger nerd than me.
Whoa.
Your Star Wars cred is unquestionable. You stepped up and helped me here at the end of the season as well. And frankly, our on-air chemistry is really on point. And then, of course, there's Marcel. I mentioned him earlier as somebody that I had too short of a time with, right? Just 3 episodes. He's, of course, better known as the Tolkienist, Marcel Aubron-Boulez, if I can pronounce that correctly. He's another one of these OG Tolkien community guys, been around forever. And doing that Tolkien Reading Day episode with him was fantastic. I could listen to him read the Silmarillion all day. He's funny, he's sharp, he's insightful, and just another all-around super nice guy. I really wish I'd had more time with him and hopefully get him back in the common room someday. Then Shawn came back. Obviously, that was fantastic. But after he left again, I was joined by Nubeta Dubeta. And again, big shoes to fill because you're coming in after Shawn Marchese. I loved how he was willing to disagree hard with me, to actually fully no, man, the Witch King's my man, And it's I loved it. He's great. He had different perspectives. He knew how to back them up. He brought a really, really refreshing flavor to the PPP with his irreverent humor, his willingness to say it like it is. He's the only co-host I've ever had to bleep. That humor, that tone, that attitude was hilarious. And it was so helpful in a dark chapter like we covered in The Pyre of Denethor that the world frankly needs more Tolkien fans like him. Somebody with a rich cultural knowledge that isn't based in traditional nerd stuff. Not that he doesn't know his nerd stuff, but he's got street smarts that I never could possess. I mean, he knows culture. He knows street. He knows New York. He knows Brooklyn. And I love having him on the show. He's so much fun. I hope to work with him again. And then it was my other co-host from the Rings of Power Wrap-Up that came on after that, Dr. Sarah Brown. Wow. She blew me away. I probably had some of the best and most insightful commentary of the season in those 3 episodes on the Houses of Healing. She gave me a totally new perspective on Yorith, opened my eyes even more on one of my favorite characters, and that's Eowyn. Despite her insistence that the H in herb is not silent, I enjoyed every moment of her wit, her insight, and even her singing, which she compared to something about a dying cat. I can't recall exactly what she said, but the fact is I can't wait for season 2 of the Rings of Power, not just because I want to watch the show, but I want to have an excuse to record with her again. And then, of course, here at the end, both Shawn Gunner and you have come back for a couple of episodes each to wrap things up. So thank you to both of you for that. And I also want to thank my backup hosts who were willing to join me, but ended up never having to, Jeremy Edmonds and Kelly Rice. So just an amazing group of people, all of whom give back to the community in so many ways. And so I can't answer that question of who's my favorite. They're all my favorite in individual different ways. But Sam, thanks for putting me on the spot.
Man, like I said earlier, it's an awesome lineup, and I'm honored to be a part of it and to have been on some episodes here of the Prancing Pony. I mean, when you've got Jeremy Edmonds and Kelly Rice as alternates, like it's,
yeah,
it says something pretty awesome about the lineup really of does. Folks. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty incredible. I can't say how blessed I am to be a part of this community. The show, who knows what would have happened otherwise. And I'm just so incredibly grateful for folks to have done what they did. So, all right, folks, that does wrap it up though for another episode and another season of the Prancing Pony podcast. But come back again on September 17th when I hope to join the Lord of the Mark for a live episode recorded at Oxenmoot.
Oh, that'll be so cool. I'm really pumped for you guys to record live at Oxenmoot.
That will be fun. We had so much fun doing Tolkien 2019. Yeah.
Now, folks, Alan and I want to thank the members of Team PPP. Editor Jordan Randalls, Barlaman Becca Davis, Social Media Manager Casey Hilsey, Event and Patreon Community Coordinator Katie McKenna, Graphic Artist Megan Collins, and Website Guru Phil Dean.
I really want to thank each of those folks again. I know I've said that before, but this is the end of the season. I really want to make sure everybody on the team knows how grateful I am for each and every one of you and for the jobs that you've done to help keep the show alive and to not just keep it alive, but to make it thrive. Thank you. Please be sure to give us a visit at the website, theprancingponypodcast.com. We've got show notes, hilarious outtakes, Prancing Pony ponderings, and our online storefront where you can get all sorts of PPP merch, including all that cool new artwork, that chapter art from Megan.
And you'll also want to visit our library page. The Prancing Pony podcast is first and foremost a podcast about the books. So if you're interested in a book we've mentioned on the show, you'll find a link for it in our library. The PPP gets a small amount of compensation when you make your purchase, and we thank you for that.
Indeed we do. And we also want to thank our patrons at the Kierdan's contribution tier. It's really all of our patrons that make this possible. We can't name all, 700 now, but we can certainly name these, and I will. I'm going to start with the May in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Joseph in Michigan, Kathy from North Carolina, Lori from Washington, Carlos in California, Brian in the UK, Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Dylan in Australia, and Ben in Minnesota.
There's also Anthony in Texas, Karen in the UK, Zaksu in Illinois, Brian in Texas, Sarah in New Jersey, Joshua in Massachusetts, Lucy in Texas, Connor in North Carolina, Erica in Texas, Carson in Oklahoma, Keith in Alabama, Vivian in California, James in Massachusetts, Ann in Kentucky, Roger in Michigan, Shawn in New Jersey, Mason in California, and Maureen from Massachusetts. Thank you all so very much for your support.
Indeed. Thank you all for making this possible.
Make sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony podcast. Subscribe now through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or your favorite podcast app.
One last thing, as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and, well, most of all, your winged, fluttery, disembodied voices. No, never mind, actually. We're probably better off without those. To Barlaman at theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want your voice literally heard, well, just send us audio of your question. Visit podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Please be sure to still email the question to Barlaman. Even though Barlaman's been a lot more reliable lately, there's still a lot of mail to sort through. We'll try to get to you just as soon as we're able.
As always, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners, and with such an excellent and admirable co-host. But until next time.
This is the end. We are going. We are leaving now. Goodbye.